Leave the bright blue door on the whitewashed wall. Leave the death ledger under City Hall. Leave the joyful air in that rubber ball today. Just leave the lilac print on the linen sheet.
I'm standing in front of my home. It doesn't look the same. There used to be a hedge all the way around it. This pine tree is the same, and the catalpa tree is the same. And it used to have green shutters around the windows. And I spent 19 years of my life in this house, and it was home. So what do you want to know?
What was across the street?
Across the street was a high school, all the way across, and a junior high to the south of it. And the middle school here used to be a seminary building right across from our house. And then over in this place was a field where we could play baseball, had bleachers, and all kinds of fun things. And this was home, and the S's on the S hill, they've been there forever. Our house sat on a quarter of a block. We owned a quarter of the whole block, which is about an acre. And we had a big pasture and a big garden and an orchard behind it. And we always had a cow and a pig and pig pens, and we used a big haystack, and we had a great time just playing. And we had night games there was a street light, and the whole neighborhood would get together and we'd play night games, and it was so fun. We didn't have to worry about anybody bothering us because everybody knew everybody in Monroe. It was wonderful.
Where was the ditch?
There was a ditch that ran right where the fire hydrant is. It ran along there, and you could hear it bubbling by. It was wonderful, and my dad used to put a watermelon in there if he knew we were coming, or root beer, so it would be cold and nice when we came. There was a fence. The hedge went all the way around our property with a little gate that came into it. It was a wonderful place. It's a small house. 4 of my brothers ended up over 6 feet tall, and they all slept in the same room in 2 double beds. And Marcella and I had a bedroom just big enough for 1 bed. And then there was Mother and Dad's bedroom, a front room, and a kitchen. And we didn't have a bathroom until I was 11 years old. We had a path, and it was a 2-holer, and I always wondered why.
Just leave the lilac print on the linen sheet. Leave the birds you killed at your father's feet. Let the sideways rain in the crooked street.
Okay, the S's have always been on the hill as long as I can remember. And when I was in high school, Richfield was one of our most hated rivals. But before the basketball game, someone from Richfield a group would sneak over and put an A in front of the S's. And we always knew it was from Richfield that did that. The chimney there, we put in when we finally got a furnace. We used to have just coal stoves to heat the house, and the bedrooms were so cold. And the bedroom upstairs where the window is, the grass underneath it was yellow all the time. And my folks couldn't figure out what the problem was. And my grandma came to visit us, and she said, "What's going on here with that yellow grass under that window?" She says, "The kids are peeing out the window." And that's what was happening. It was keeping the grass dead. Can I say that? All the way down to Center Street, or Main Street. And at night when I'd come home from a movie or something, I'd go out in the middle of the road and just run like crazy because I always thought someone was hiding behind it. Okay, I'm here on about 1st East and 2nd North, and this is the site where a new chapel was built when I was about 4 years old. And it was really interesting. It was the North Ward Chapel, and President Heber J. Grant himself came down to dedicate it. And that was, it would be unheard of these days. But my mother conducted the music for the dedication, and all of the children that were under 12 that were in primary couldn't go into the main chapel, so we had to go up into the primary room and be entertained. But after the dedication was over, President Grant came up to the primary room and he greeted each one of us, and all the girls got a kiss on the cheek from President Heber J. Grant. So we really didn't miss a lot. There's been 2 different churches. This is the third one that I know of that's been here on the same lot. But the one that was dedicated is the one I went to all through my growing up years, and it was after I moved away that they tore it down.
Remain. Leave the whimpering dog in his cold kennel. Leave the dead starlit on her pedestal. Leave the ash-sick kids in their green fish bowls today. Leave the sad guitar.
This is the pavilion, we called it when I lived here, and a lot of the church dances and socials were held here. And when I was in junior high, they had a opera, a little, what do they call them?
Operetta?
Operetta. And I tried out for the lead part when I was in 9th grade, and I got it. And so I was on stage here. The front of it is dressing rooms and restrooms, and then there was a big dance floor with an orchestra pit and then a big stage. And they put chairs in here, and we had a full house. And it was a Spanish theme. I don't remember it, but I was dressed up like a Spanish girl, and I just sang my little heart out. And my lead, that was supposed to be my boyfriend, was Bill Webb, Carlos's brother, that was my age. But we had a lot of good times here. And I can remember Mom and Dad coming and dancing there along with us. I remember one Halloween dance that they had in this pavilion, and I was in Logan at school, and my boyfriend was down in Cedar City at school, and he asked if I was coming home for the Halloween dance and weekend, and I said no, I couldn't get a ride. So I got a ride, and I came and brought a costume. I don't remember what I was dressed up, but nobody knew who I was. And so I went into the dance, and of course he was there, and I recognized his costume, but they had a mixer, and we ended up as partners, and we danced around, and I was just acting crazy so he wouldn't know who I was. And he kept saying, well, who are you? And I wouldn't tell him, but anyway, when we got to taking our masks off, or our costumes off, he said, Lila Jane, I didn't know that was you. And that was neat, and of course he took me home, and it was great. Just one of the memories.
'Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. A train off in the distance, bicycle chained to the stairs. Everything, it must belong somewhere. I know that now, that's why we're staying here.
This was the theater that was built when I was about 13, I think, 13 or 14. Before that, we watched movies at the old North Ward Chapel. Dad had a projector and put it on a screen, and we'd watch the movies there. But when I was about in my early teens, then they built this Carol Theater, and they used to have a big organ in there, a pipe organ, and a lady would play the organ before the movies, and then we'd see the movie and a short and a cartoon, and it was wonderful. We were in the big time. We saw a real movie in a real theater. Next door, where you see the drugstore sign, was what we called the pool hall. And you know, you think now of a pool hall being pretty bad, but in those days, the back was the pool hall where they served beer, and the ruffians would come and play pool. But in the front was, on one side was the confectionery, where you could buy all kinds of candy and treats like that. And on the other side was a fountain where you could get milkshakes and malts and sundaes and like that. So to go to the pool hall wasn't a bad thing. That's where everybody went to get their treats.
Leave the oceans roar in that turquoise shell, leave the widower in his private hell, leave the liberty in that broken bell today. Just leave the epic poem on its yellow page, leave the grey macaw in his covered cage, let the traveling band on the interstate remain. Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. Soundstage in California, televisions in Times Square, yeah. Everything must belong somewhere.
Behind me is the volcanic remains, the hot pots where you see the yellow and the brown, and the pools. It used to be open, and we'd hike up here all the time, and we would bring eggs and put them in a mesh, like a gunny sack, and put them in the water, and it would boil the eggs. And you know, Neil tried that not long ago, and it boiled his eggs too. It's still coming out hot, so there's some activity going on underground. We used to roam these hills all the time, and the plunge where we went swimming all the time is gone, but the foundation of the pool is still there, and I think Kevin's getting a picture of it. It seems a lot smaller than it used to, but the old structure is gone, and there used to be a dance floor and an orchestra pit and a Nickelodeon and a little sandwich bar, and we'd just spend all summer up here. We had passes so we could swim every day of the week, except Sundays. And it was in this plunge, in this pool, that I was baptized when I was 8 years old. That was the only place we could baptize in the area. So it has a lot of meanings to it. And another thing happened in this pool when I was about 7 years old. I was sitting on the shallow end and watching someone that was playing on a trapeze in the middle. And I thought, whoa, that looks really fun. So when he left, I got out and got up on the edge, and I jumped for the trapeze and missed it. And I went under, and it was way over my head. And I went down and pushed myself up, and I did that 2 or 3 times, and I just saw everything closing in around me, and I thought I was going to die. And the next thing I knew, I was sitting on the steps on that end, far end, and there was no one around me, and I don't know how I ever got onto those steps. It was a miracle. I thought I was drowning.
I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Leave the secret talks on the trundle bed. Leave the garden tools in the rusted shed.
This used to be a big amphitheater, and it had a huge, you can see almost where the fire pit used to be. And then there were 3 rows back of curved benches, wooden benches that went around it. And this is where we came for a lot of times for mutual cookouts or campouts, and we had family home evenings up here. It was a fun place to come. It's changed. Everything, you can't go back. Everything changes. But the spot's the same. The mountains are the same. A lot of memories here. Dad and I used to come up and the boys, when they were home, and we'd clean and rake the whole area and clean out the ashes from the fire pit and oil the benches or paint them if they needed it. We did a lot of work up here during the summer.
Why did you do it?
We did it because my dad was working for the Forest Service during the summer. He taught school while the school was on, and then for a summer job he worked for the Forest Service, and his responsibility was to keep Monrovian Park clean, with the trails clean, and we'd empty the garbage and oil the stoves. There used to be little camp stoves, and clean it up outhouses clean. That wasn't one of my favorite jobs. And it was fun to be with my dad. I loved my dad, and we had a great time together up here. Yeah, we graduated on a Friday night from high school, and Saturday afternoon, there were 4 girls that were together all through my school years, and we still are good friends. But we walked up the canyon and had a little picnic, and then we stayed here until after dark. And we were sitting around one of the campfires and talking and wondering what would happen to us, because some of us were going away to college and others were just going to work, or one was getting married, and we thought, somewhere in this world is someone we're going to marry, and what does the future hold? And we sat and looked at the stars and just talked about our future, and great memories. And 2 of my friends are still in Monroe, and I visit with them. One has never left Monroe, the other retired back to Monroe. Oronel and Ruth. My boys know them well. It was a fun time up here.
Ideas in your troubled head today. Just leave the restless ghost in his old hotel. Leave the homeless man out in that cardboard cell. Let the painted horse on the carousel remain.
Okay, this is coming out of the canyon, and you can see it going down into the valley. And when the boys and Dad and I used to come up here, Dad would get about to this point. It was a Model A Ford, I think, is what we were driving then. It was before we got our 1938 Chev. And Dad would turn the car off, and we would coast. And we'd coast all the way down, and then we'd make that turn just going like crazy, and we'd see how far into Monroe we could get. And one time we made it all the way through Main Street and turned up on Center Street and went about a block past where the coffee shop is. That was our all-time favorite trip with Dad, because and the boys were pushing and shoving, trying to get traction, so we'd go farther. And then we'd go up the hill, and Dad would always say, High School Hill, Seminary Street, AC's Hotel, and nothing to eat. But when we got home, Mother had been alone most of the day, and she always had fresh bread and cinnamon rolls waiting for us, and that was a wonderful memory. So this is coming out of Monroe Canyon.
'Cause everything, it must belong somewhere. Just like the gold around her finger, or the silver in his hair. Yeah, everything must belong somewhere. I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Oh, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here.
I just want you all to know that I love you. I know each one of you, and I keep you in my prayers, and I'm just so proud of you. The generations get better as the years go by. You get better looking too. But I just wanted to say that my life has been filled. I've had a lot of joy. I've had some sorrow, but things have worked out, and I'm so grateful to have had my youth days here in Monroe. My brothers and I have talked often of we don't know where in the world we could have lived and had a better childhood than we did right here in Monroe. If I could go back and change anything, I don't think I would change a thing. It was a great place to grow up. We loved it. We loved each other, and we loved our friends and people in the town. It was a great time in my life. And when I ever I get kind of lonesome or melancholy, I need to come back to Monroe and remember how happy I was here as a child and as a young adult. And I want you to know that life is all about choices. You just can choose to be happy. You can choose to weather the storms and come out on the other side with a lot of fun and a lot of light and good experiences. Or you can choose to be miserable, and I hope you won't do that. Be happy. Be grateful for the things that you have, and keep a smile in your heart, and know that I love you, and I'm so proud of all of you. We're all going to end up in a cemetery someday, so this is pretty appropriate when I'm in my 81st year to anticipate. I don't plan to go anyplace very soon. I hope to be around a long, long time. I love you.
Around a finger or the silver in his hair. Everything must belong somewhere. I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. Oh, I know that now, that's why I'm staying here. In truth, the forest hears each sound, each blade of grass as it lies down. The world requires no audience, no witnesses, no witnesses. Leave the old town drunk on his wooden stool. Leave the autumn leaves in their swimming pool. Leave the poor black child in his crumbling school today. Leave the novelist in his daydream tomb. Leave the scientist in her Rubik's Cube. Let the true genius in the padded room remain. Leave the horse's hair on the slanted bow. Leave the slot machines on the riverboat. Leave the car